There's a term that's bandied about a lot today by lots of people. It's very popular, Christians, non-Christians alike. And the term is social justice. And it raises a question about what exactly that is. I actually am suspicious of the term. I understand that people often use it in a virtuous fashion, but I think there's mischief involved with the term too. And one friend of mine once said that whenever you add an adjective to the word justice, you pervert it. Whether it's social justice or racial justice or economic justice or environmental justice. What's wrong with justice? Why not just plain old justice? Isn't that adequate to apply to any of those circumstances? When there is an actual injustice, the injustice should be addressed. It should be corrected. The problem with things like social justice is there's more baggage that goes with it. There's ideology that is tied to this. Social justice is a term that is usually applied to what people perceive as inequities in culture that ought to be corrected by force. That, in my book, aren't always inequities or acts of injustice. Lots of times it's applied to people who are poor. Well, social justice requires that we give to the poor. Well, why is the word justice used there? Maybe we ought to give to the poor, but why is it an issue of justice? Well, because the poor have been wronged. Well, how have they been wronged? Well, they're poor. So do you see the notion of justice or injustice is tied to the condition of poverty? Not how they got there necessarily. Some people are poor because they've been robbed. That's injustice. But this generally is taken as it is an injustice when anyone is poor or lacking something that other people have, whether it's health care or housing or whatever it happens to be. So then there is this kind of egalitarian ideology that's in the background. We all ought to have the same. And if some people get more, no matter how they get it, maybe they get it by working hard. This is a biblical virtue. Maybe they don't have it because they haven't worked well or applied themselves well or whatever. But the idea of social justice is that there is an injustice to the circumstance of someone having more than something else. And this just isn't sound. The same thing with racial justice. Sometimes there are concerns about racial justice, but sometimes there's a leftist ideology that's in play here. Same thing with environmental justice and the like. So my approach to these things is to simply ask, in any given situation, is there an actual injustice that has taken place? And if so, then what are our responsibilities to correcting that? I don't presume that poverty itself is an injustice. I don't presume, for example, that homosexuality itself is an injustice. There's an injustice being done to the homosexual because people think homosexuality is wrong. So my recommendation is for Christians to get rid of that term entirely, except for in the rare cases when they're trying to identify with a culture who uses that term very broadly. So the Christian could say, I care about social justice, that is, I care about the poor. And so you're speaking their language in the moment, but be careful that you don't fall into the trap of buying the ideology that goes with it. I avoid the terms myself almost completely. I would rather simply talk about justice and apply it when the term applies and not use it when the term doesn't apply.